Hello everyone and welcome back to Tech 5 Production. So finally, after months of waiting, ASUS finally released the Ally to the public. And for the past week or so, I've been using it as my daily gaming device. For people who have heard of the ASUS ROG Ally, but is not really sure what it actually is, essentially, the Ally is a portable gaming computer. I say that because of the time that I've used it so far. Almost anything that can be done on a PC can be done here too. Now this is mainly due to the Ally going for a more traditional OS of Windows 11, which I feel is a smart choice. It makes the Ally feel familiar, especially if you're someone who's previously gamed a lot on a PC. Because of its similarity to a PC, especially due to it coming with Windows 11 together, I was quite surprised by its price, being priced at only 3,299 ringgit. Now, I believe that that's a great price for entry, since most of the gaming laptops these days tend to cost more than just that price. And if you're already a PC gamer, you have all your libraries here already, since it works on Windows 11, so Steam, Epic Game Store, everything will be here. And for new purchase of ROG Allies, you'll be getting 3 months of Xbox Game Pass together. Now that certainly makes this price very reasonable. Now in terms of specification, the ROG Ally has pretty decent power under the hood with an AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme processor, which is based on the Zen 4 architecture and has 8 core 16 threads, and is able to turbo boost up to 5.1 GHz for the CPU side. And it will be using the AMD RDNA 3 with 12 compute unit and is able to turbo up to 2.7 GHz. That's for the GPU side. But again, specs on the paper can only show you so far. So let's run through some benchmark and see how the Ally actually performs. Now for the benchmark that we've done for the games, we run the Ally when it is plugged in with its turbo mode enabled. So you'll be running the full 30 watt power mode for all the game benchmark that we'll be doing here. So let's go! So for our test, we try to achieve around 60 FPS for AAA games if it's possible, or at least 30 if it's a more demanding game. And for esports title, we just try to get it above 60 FPS with the best graphic quality as possible. Overall then, the performance is great for a device of only this size, where space and cooling are limited compared to a full-size PC or even a laptop. And with portability that allows you to play all these AAA games on the move, the performance here is certainly impressive. But other than its performance, I'm sure you guys want to know how the Ally feels when it's used for gaming. Well, weighing in at only 608 grams, holding the Ally for long hours isn't much of an issue, but we'll get more into that later. Externally, in terms of ports, the Ally has quite a little of it actually, with only one usable USB Type-C on the top, a 3.5mm headphone combo jack, a micro SD card slot for you to expand the storage of the Ally, and there's also a power button for you to turn it on, and it comes with a fingerprint scanner too that works flawlessly with Windows Hello. All that being said, I do kind of wish the Ally comes with one more USB Type-A port, since I believe most people have a USB Type-A expansion slot. But you do get one more slot over here, which we'll be talking later. Now, going back to the front, the analog is a bit on the shorter side, but I find the grip around the analog helps to reposition my thumb back to its place whenever I use something else. It's also great that ASUS follows the Xbox analog layout where it's asymmetrical, which I personally prefer compared to the PlayStation's symmetrical analog position. The face button feels okay, with it reminding me a bit of the older Xbox 360 controllers, which means it has quite a bit of travel on them and will have a little bit of wiggling on them too if you press it really hard. But overall, one can certainly have a good time gaming on this device without feeling too uncomfortable. Now for the bumpers and triggers, I find the triggers feel during use feels good. They have a nice travel to them. So even if you're playing something like a driving game, you have no problems using them. The bumpers on the other hand are not bad actually, but they don't feel as good as the triggers over here. They kind of have short traveling to them compared to the triggers. Now other than the standard Xbox controller configuration buttons, you also get two more macro buttons at the back over here, which you can set it to any buttons that you like for your own convenience. Quite easy to press too. If I have to comment on using the Ally as a controller, it would be its longer shape. That will make it a bit tiring to hold for long hours instead of the weight. It's actually the length. This is probably a byproduct of having a bigger screen in the middle, which most of the real estate in the middle is actually taken by. And with that, is the thing that's taking up all those spaces justified? And yeah, it is actually. With it having a 7-inch touchscreen display over here, with a screen resolution of 1920 by 1080p, 120Hz refresh rate with 7 millisecond response time, and it will have a peak brightness of 500 nits. Gaming on these displays feels good, especially since recently I just picked up a copy of Spider-Man Remastered. For a screen size of only 7-inch, 1080p feels like 4K on it due to the distance that you'll be playing the Ally on. And since all the pixels are so small, it feels really clear and crisp. And because of it being an IPS panel along with the great brightness, even gaming outdoor isn't much of an issue, which I would imagine you'll likely be using it outdoors in places like MRT or your favorite local kopitiam. Although after a long gaming session, around 1.5 hours plus, I do find myself wishing to game on a bigger screen. Not because the screen here is not good, but the eyes do get kind of tired after gaming on such a tiny screen. So do remember to take a 5-minute break if you're going to game on the Ally for long sessions. Moving from the screen, how's the speakers on the ROG Ally? They're actually pretty good. Volume on the speakers can go pretty loud, and the bass is not too shabby too, especially when it comes to built-in external speakers. Here, have a listen to them.
Hey, it's me!
Is that you? It's time to fight.
Now onto the battery life of the ROG Ally, and I believe this would be the weakness of it. Maybe this is due to it running the main OS on Windows 11, or it could be the hardware that's underneath, which is quite powerful. Either way, while using the default setting in which the Ally will switch itself to the performance mode while it's not plugged in, the battery only lasted around 1.5 hours while we were playing AAA games such as Marvel Spider-Man, F1 2022 or Cyberpunk with performance mode instead of turbo mode, no less. So for a short hop on the local MRT, the ROG Ally will be able to cover you just fine. But then again, on a longer transit like a plane ride or a cruise, it might start to be a problem. And oh, regarding playing the ROG Ally on your commute, the ROG Ally is not waterproof. So do be careful when you're taking it out when it's raining, or even worse, bringing it to your local swimming pool. So don't do that. Since we mentioned that the main OS running on the Ally is Windows 11, let's go through its software a bit. And to help the Ally in its handheld mode like this, ASUS have included their My ASUS software to help with all your required drivers and updates easier, since downloading them one by one with Windows 11 could be a bit of hassle on such a small screen without a mouse or keyboard. Along with that, you also get Armoury Crate SE, which is like a special edition of Armoury Crate just for the Ally, which is lighter and directs you to all of your game and works even on the controller buttons. It also comes with an extra few neat little software touches such as screen recording and hardware monitoring that lets you directly monitor and keep track of the ROG Ally's performance, temperature and battery levels and all that things. right here. We did, however, encounter a few bugs, like the BIOS was having trouble updating itself, or that our My ASUS software couldn't launch when the ASUS ROG Ally was plugged in to its power cord. Later on, it kind of fixed itself, we're unsure why too, and was working okay again. But I think some early adopter bugs are to be expected, and I believe ASUS will keep updating and working out on all these issues. And for a first take on a handheld gaming PC, I say they pulled it off quite well already, considering the little amount of game-breaking bugs that I've encountered. And finally, I think we should mention a little bit on the Ally's temperature. On normal usage and or idling conditions, the Ally actually runs quite cool and quiet, with the temps running around 40 to 50 degrees Celsius only. And while gaming, it can reach temps of around the mid 70s to low 80s depending on how you're running it and what mode you're running it on. Thankfully though, the exhaust of the heat is concentrated around the top area of the Ally. So even if the temperature do get to a higher point, such as around 80 plus degree, your hands won't really feel the heat while you're gaming on it, since your hand will be placed here and the exhaust of the heat will be placed at the top of the Ally. So yeah, won't really be an issue there. And fan sounds remains quite low even under load. This could be likely thanks to the ASUS decision on using a dual fan configuration. And all in all, the Ally is certainly able to handle its own heat output quite well, whether it's plugged in or unplugged. Something that is not as well thought out for the Ally, I like to say, is the traveling bag. Now the original traveling bag from ASUS doesn't have a place for the charger or adapter of the Ally. So the only thing you can put inside is really, well, just the Ally. Here, which isn't all that helpful, since I was hoping that you can have one travel bag that you can place everything all in one go. So perhaps ASUS need to consider making another travel bag for a traveling adapter, or perhaps you can consider a third-party one. Now that we're done with the Ally on its own, let's go through an accessory that can change the way how the Ally works, and it's the ASUS ROG XG Mobile. Now the model we have in hand here is the 2021 RTX 3080 Mobile GPU version, but in terms of functionality and usability, it should be quite similar to the 2023 model. Now what this does is essentially makes the Ally into an almost full-fledged PC, adding 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2 along with a HDMI and DisplayPort. The interface connector of the XG Mobile to the Ally is at the top. Basically, you just plugged it on the top of the Ally, around the USB Type-C area. So this will provide those things and will keep the ROG Ally charged in the same time. Performance of the Ally will also see a significant improvement, with the GPU performance mainly based on the XG Mobile GPU that you've gotten. The XG Mobile that ASUS is selling currently are based on the RTX 4090 or the RX 6850M XT. But the model we have over here is the RTX 3080 Mobile. So instead of testing out its performance with this XG Mobile, which should be quite similar and close to a gaming laptop with a 3080 Mobile, I've instead called upon the help of our video editor again, where I set up the Ally as almost a fully fledged PC and asked him to use it as a video editing rig to get his feedback on how the Ally performs even for work things.
So when I load all the footage on the timeline, it's quite fast, the import. And also when using the work on the timeline, it's quite snappy and very smooth. Quite surprising, the GPU can handle all this footage in 4K, and after that the rendering time also quite surprising. It's like using a desktop GPU.
So there you have it, the ASUS ROG Ally. Did it live up to all the hype? Well, after around 2 weeks of using it, I can safely say that, yep, it does. It has done most of the things that I thought it can do nicely, in that it's a portable gaming PC that's perfect for on-the-go gaming in short commutes, while having the options to convert it into something more powerful, like a little miniature desktop. And who do we think the Ally is suitable for? It's certainly an amazing product for anyone that's looking for a handheld gaming device that's as close to a PC as they can get and having the portability of being able to game on almost anywhere. The MRT, the coffee shop, or even, well, the toilet. And having the option to make it into a miniature desktop is certainly a big plus, especially for people with work that requires them to travel a lot. Since on its own and even with the XG Mobile together, the whole setup won't really take up that much space. It will be something like this only. So that's all for our review of the ASUS ROG Ally. We hope this video will help you make a more informed decision whether or not to go for the Ally or not. Make sure to like this video if you like it, dislike it if you don't, and remember to share it to all your friends and family. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye!